Okay, hello and welcome to Series 1, Episode number 2 of this Transformation What's Next series. This episode called Identity. So let's have a look at the foundation of identity in my examples. My father was an alcoholic, my mother left when I was young, and there were never enough food, money, clothes, communication, praise, connection, love, or involvement from my parents in nearly any way, and that includes a physical connection like cuddles and hugs. I had one pair of jeans for 5 years, and I used to wash them one night to wear them the next day. And as a young boy, I actually didn't get that if you hung washing out at night time, it wouldn't dry, and so I would often wear them wet. I also saw in the fridge one day that there was one egg, nothing else to eat, nothing at all, nothing in the cupboards, and that was quite common. I always took to school any lunch that I did have in the bread, the bag that the bread come in. Of course, I got that I was different to everybody else. Regardless of whether other kids had similar circumstances, I felt like I was always without runners, without stationery or the books that I needed for class, without the uniform. Although I grew up in a very rough area, and I'm sure there were other kids in very similar circumstances, to me, I was different. And that was my reality, regardless of whether it was the truth or not. If you asked me at the time, that was my truth. So what have you recalled as a review of your first memories in each of the areas of something is wrong here, something's very wrong here, and then I'm all alone in this. I'm all alone in this relationship, in this family, in this marriage, in this life. And I don't belong. I'm different. I'm different to the others. I don't have a personality that people like, or whatever it is for you that makes you feel like you're different and don't belong. And what came up for you when you went through those things? For me, I made those things mean that I wasn't cared for. I made it mean that I wasn't that I was alone. I made it mean that I was without. So I declared I was never going to be without again, and I declared that I would not communicate and be affectionate with and compassionate to others and my feelings. Empathy was a very difficult thing for me to get. It was survival of the fittest. Dog eat dog. I learnt that something was terribly wrong. I was alone. I learnt that I had to be what it was that I needed to be to overcome being alone and abused from an alcoholic father. I had to self-manage myself and my life. I had to be tough. I learned that my truth was that I should dominate others to get better results, that I wouldn't show feelings, that people don't care about me, they don't ask how I feel or how I am, that people are generally selfish, they don't share. And there's certainly a scarcity in life, that love and feelings can hurt you and are signs of weakness that others would use to inflict pain. I declared, therefore, I was not going to be like my parents. I was not going to have children that were in a position like myself, that I was going to be involved and have a close family and never be without. Hence, the meanings that I made around the fears that I saw of the meanings such as one egg in the fridge. Through the eyes of an 8-year-old, all of this, of course, is perfect reasoning. It made perfect sense. But in the eyes of a 30, 40, 50-year-old, they're no longer relevant. Yet, at the time, they were a perceived threat that I had to survive. And I woke up one day 20 years later and realised that I had 2 of everything. I'd purchase 2 of everything. I would never run out. I had 2 peanut butters, 2 large salt containers. I couldn't even use one would last me a lifetime. 2 bunches of bananas, 2 laundry detergents, 2 of everything. And this was living into an old, imagined threat of scarcity that was no longer relevant in an adult life. Never wanting to run out, ever. I ensured I had double of everything in every way. It may sound minor, but this absolutely ruled my life. Costs here, costs there, costs everywhere. But it was only once I was looking for the costs and trying to trade them off against the payoffs. The costs, of course, were connection, affinity, and empathy, among many. And the payoffs were that people would feel sorry for you. I could complain that the life's a terrible place and my upbringing was no good and my parents were no good. They were all they were all very good payoffs for me. And I woke up to the fact that, of course, it's no surprise my family was also suffering. My parents themselves, no surprise, had difficulty in showing feelings and connection themselves. If I got this, then maybe I could open the door for them to get it as well. And subsequently, that was the most amazing thing that did happen. So what I did do, the process I did follow, was to deconstruct my identity. I followed the process in this presentation and then I documented it. In this example, what I did was I deconstructed the meanings that I had around love, connection, abuse, affection, parenting, and in particular feelings. My frames of reference that I was using, my feelings in particular, I got very close to those. And I found the payoffs and the costs, and I could then trade them off and see if it was worth it anymore. And I got that it was way too costly. So I would do whatever it takes, no matter how risky, to transform that area of my life. My precipice had been reached. It was enough. I found that I hid my feelings, and of course I found that I did that everywhere. My automatic spring-loaded bear trap would protect my feelings, or my monster in that area would come out and bite your hand off if you went anywhere near feelings. In fact, I would leave the conversation, even physically if necessary. I would use argumentative logic and domination and anger and flooding the conversation first. I was powerful in business though, of course, since I was pushy and logical and could cut you down with street smarts that weren't maybe well known in business. But of course that hid the rest of the bigger piece of the iceberg under the water, that fear of being vulnerable or at risk or lonely or opening up about my feelings to others and showing affection and appreciation. It was very difficult for me in this area because of my skewed view now. Does anything in that sound familiar to you? Not necessarily about feelings, but certainly about the deconstruction of identity for the creation of meaning for a perceived or real threat when you were young. Living in that cold, frigid hell for me was a terrible place. But I no longer had to live there once I deconstructed my meanings and created a new possibility. Transformation in this area was bumpy, but to confront that I might be the cause of the matter of the condition of my life through my meanings, through the eyes of a 6, 8 or 10-year-old, was the most difficult of all. Because instead of living in a victim of circumstance that was beyond my control, I now had to take accountability for making it mean those things and then creating an identity around them. Once I did that, risky as it was and unfamiliar as it was, I got transformation in this entire area. If you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always gotten. As you've heard before, that is very relevant here. And I was sick of tired of being sick and tired and getting repeated results. So I've reached a crossroad, if you like. If you're holding on to some old bitterness and resentments and a need to be right, that this person did something or something to you, like it matters. That's a big statement nowadays. I use all the time. Like it matters to live your life never allowing yourself to be wrong. You know, I challenge myself to be wrong because it like it matters. If you don't, you're going to pay big time. These are your fears. If you don't take accountability and responsibility for your creation of them, albeit it made sense a long time ago, it's now time to let that go. But maybe you haven't paid enough cost yet. Maybe you still need to suffer some more. That's possible and plausible, and maybe the payoffs are still too great. Maybe it all sounds too hard. Maybe you don't get it. Some people don't get it because then they'd need to get off of it, and they'd have to get it if you get that. Choose to play full out in transformation in your own areas, no matter what it takes, no matter what the risk. That is the pathway through to a deconstruction around identity. And if you're really saying yes, then let's continue with the presentation. In any case, what have you got to lose? And what have you got to gain? A few hours of understandings versus 20, 30, 40 years of suffering. Transformation takes an instant, and that's all it takes.